This is actually the star of the show, Ben. Ben Davis. I'll let you introduce yourself, Ben.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben Davis. I'm the program director here at Swedish Family Medicine. What you hear in the background probably is the ambulance going to our ED, but we're going to keep recording anyway.
Yeah, we're right next door in the clinic in the hospital. Again, my name's An. I'm a second year at Swedish Self. And Ben, you and I have somewhat parallel paths. I feel like I'm not a program director, obviously. I feel like we were both sub-ICU residents here. You have a really interesting story. So tell me about your background and where you grew up and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit fortuitous. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they start on their path, they say, I'm going to do this. But there's so much serendipity that happens. For me, I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. If anyone's from Anchorage, I probably know you because it's a big city, but everyone knows each other. And I grew up there. And after high school, I graduated and I needed a little bit of a bigger scene. And so I came down to Seattle, Washington, where I did my undergraduate training and med school. And I did a sub-I, as An mentioned, here at Swedish Family Medicine. And I absolutely fell in love with the program. It was the first time I really felt like the heart of medicine and the mind of medicine were in the same place. And it wasn't just people who were doing fantastic work and training for their patients, but people that I really enjoyed being around. And so that made me fall in love with the program. I ranked it highly, and I was fortunate enough to match. And I did my residency here. I was a DFM guy, so I was at DFM for 3 years. But I graduated and came on to faculty, and now I'm a first-hill guy. So I just got to make the cycle over to Ballard, and I'll have the trifecta. And so I came here for faculty work back in 2015, and then I became the associate program director in 2017. And then took over as program director in September of 2019. So we're coming up on a year now.
Yeah. So tell me more about when you moved out of Anchorage. Was it like before med school, like before college, or what was that?
So I left Anchorage after high school, and so I came to UW for college. And really for me, there's no profound answer to this. I really like anonymity. And for me, I like to be able to go to the grocery store in my sweatpants and just be incognito sometimes. But I also, heard great things about the city of Seattle and the University of Washington. If you couldn't tell from the blanket, we didn't put it here for this video. Yeah, it's just been here. So I heard great things, and really I fell in love with the city immediately. I mean, the city has changed throughout the years, but there's still so much to love about Seattle and everything that surrounds Seattle.
Did you know that you were going to be a doctor when you went to UW?
Well, no is a strong word. Did I want to become a doctor? Yes. I actually, growing up, was actually leaning towards pediatrics. And to kind of go full circle in the story, I knew the program director at that time, back in 2005, as a kind of a friend of a family friend. And I actually came here for a few days shadowing as an undergrad student back in 2005. And it was quite the experience. I remember coming to Morning Report, and I don't know if this is a prank. He told me to wear a full suit. And so I wore a full suit. And of course, I didn't even own a suit. So like this suit was like super baggy on me. And I came to Morning Report in a suit, which now that I think about it, it seems ridiculous. And I came in for a delivery. He had me going for a delivery, which was pretty crazy. I know, thinking about it now, I kind of feel bad about it. But is that experience that really opened my eyes to family medicine as being something, for me, being a physician, I didn't realize it until then, was just being family physician, because I always wanted to see everyone. I hate saying no. That probably gets you in trouble in terms of work life. But, for medicine, it's a great feeling to say, yes, I can come see you. And if I don't know the answer, we'll find the answer together.
Yeah. Did you have a family doc growing up in Anchorage?
I didn't. I had a pediatrician, and that was kind of my foray into medicine. So, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's cool. So tell me about your sub-I. So you said, like, that was the first time you really found a place that you really liked. And so what was it about the sub-I? Was it like the people, the environment, the vibe? Like, tell me an experience that really helped you decide that you wanted to come here.
Yeah, it's always about the people. So one of my mottos, if you come and interview with us, you'll be inundated with this phrase, but people make the program, and it's 100% true. And I fell in love with the people in the community that it created and the culture that was created due to the people here. And there are people that really worked hard, but they didn't take themselves too seriously. So these are people that I could go out and hang out with after work or during work. And, it was a great marriage of both what I wanted in terms of clinical acumen and procedural training and kind of just rounding out full spectrum training, but also with people that I really admired and respected in an environment that really was sensitive and acknowledged where the learner was in their journey, which I didn't really experience much prior to that.
Was there like a moment that you were like, man, these are my people, and I feel like you felt really like you felt belong here?
Yeah, I probably knew it at some point during my sub-I rotation, but if I wasn't cemented then, it was at the very end of my sub-I rotation where I met with the then sub-I faculty coordinator, Elizabeth Hutchinson,
She was a coordinator?
She was.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yes, so I had a long lineage. It was Elizabeth, and then Elizabeth handed off to me, and then eventually I handed off to Carl. But I met with her at the end of my rotation, and I just remember talking about my experience and getting feedback from her. And it was just like this wonderful red ribbon on the end of this present, this gift that was this experience here that really helped reinvigorate my belief in medicine. And I remember walking out in front of the hospital, going to the garage that was on the other side of the hospital, and just smiling and feeling really great about life. And I didn't have a lot of those moments prior to that. So that was definitely a big deal for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's great. So tell me about intern year at Swedish. Apparently, it's very different. I don't know. There's always these, like, back in my day, we used to draw everyone's blood and saw 50 patients in the morning.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, how have you felt like the program has evolved since the time that you were here, and, since as you were an intern? Yeah,
I think there's certain components of our curriculum that have definitely changed, and I've been blessed to kind of see, the lens is quite long over the past 8 years as a resident, as faculty, as program director. For intern year, I would say we've made positive changes for intern year, where it is still quite heavy on inpatient medicine, and that's a way a lot of programs are, but we have offloaded some of that, hopefully in a way that's thoughtful enough to decompress the first year enough, but not overwhelming the second and third year, where you really are trying to ramp up your outpatient clinical skills. And so that was changes, we've made to the surgery rotation, to FMS in terms of making thoughtful changes of limiting the amount of 24-hour shifts. So the only 24-hour shifts you do now are ones when you're with a co-senior. Previously, there was a R3 24-hour shift where you were usually on with a sub-I, an intern, and you were kind of doing all the things, and it was a really difficult experience, but also sometimes potentially a dangerous experience. So we've made some good changes there in terms of the intern year. And I would say in the R2 and R3 year, we're constantly making smaller changes, or sometimes bigger changes. Actually, I forgot to mention the biggest changes. We moved a block of OB from the R1 year to the R2 year, which was really advocated for by the residents and took a lot of movement, but hopefully has allowed that first year to decompress, but also allowing R2s to keep up some of those skills. Because one of the other pieces of feedback we got is I did a lot of OB and I got really good in my R1 year, and then I kind of didn't do it for a long time.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that can have people kind of having the right arc when they get closer to graduation.
What was the most memorable moment of intern year for you?
Other than the intern party?
Yeah. The party.
The intern orientation party, Fort Worden. I would say all the social things are definitely the most memorable, but clinically, I would say I had a patient at DFM who I knew, shortly after I started, she became my patient. And she was from the Caribbean, and I knew her before she got sick, but shortly after she came to see me, she got really ill and had lots of respiratory distress, and ended up being admitted to the ICU for a hypoxic respiratory failure. And we found out eventually that she HIV positive, and her CD4 count was like 8. It was incredible, and we actually found that out due to the brains of one Maureen Brown. She's one of our faculty here, known for her brilliant clinical acumen. But I remember sitting with this patient. What I remember most, it wasn't the diagnosis. It was remembering I came in on a Saturday. It was my day off, and I came in the morning, and I just sat with her in the ICU. And we just sat there and we both cried together for a long time. And we didn't need to say that many words, but just being there in that moment, there's a term that we used a lot at DFM as being the charismatic individual in a patient's life. Because sometimes you just need to be the person who sits there and listens to somebody and respects them. And that's all I was. But it was a powerful experience. So for me, intern year, that was clinically the most memorable.
I feel like those moments during intern year are like what makes me love being a doctor, that I can just be there for patients and just be present with them. Talk about the social moments. Keep it, rated PG, obviously.
I hesitate to put too many words to social moments. One of the questions I always get asked is, what's so special about your program? What is the thing? And to me, it's an intangible. It's a piece of the culture. And I always tell folks to come visit us and experience it. Of course, this upcoming year, it's going to be a little bit different because it's all going to be virtual. But you can still visit us with Zoom and all the other technology that we're going to use. One thing I like to do is use photos. And so, which you can see a little bit right behind me, but these are all photos from my residency time that I keep nearby that remind me of all the social moments. And, whether that's each class gets a retreat each year, whether it's class retreats or Fort Worden, which is our big residency-wide retreat, or the curriculum retreats, or all the moments in between, even being on call late at night with co-residents. I think you should just share so many of those awesome memories of community and the culture. And again, the whole part of not taking yourself too seriously. And it's just something that is hard to put into words, but is incredibly special. And I think a lot of people here will attest to that kind of intangible that makes the work doable.
Yeah, so was there a moment during residency where you really wanted to be faculty, or do you always wanted to be faculty, like since you were a sub-I?
When I interviewed here at the program, I was asked by Jenny True, who I did my sub-I with. She was at that point an R2. What do you want to do after residency? And I think she said, what do you want to do after residency, and why is it being faculty? I forget how she knew. And I told her at that time, my dream job was not to take this job, but to have a job like it, was to have Elizabeth's job at the time. And again, working with med students, I thought was just a really kind of fun prospect. And being faculty here at this program, where we have this culture where these are people that, again, I respect and admire, but also just like hanging out with. It just seemed so perfect for me. And also just, being here in Seattle, I love the city, and it just seemed perfect to have that type of role. And so I jokingly said that during my residency interview. And so I knew probably halfway through medical school that I really wanted to teach to some degree. I did some work in med school, doing some teaching, and then I did some teaching prior to that. And so I think it's just such a gratifying experience to be with somebody and to see them grow over time. I'm a big fan of The Office, which you can't see here. There's a photo of Michael Scott here. But I'm not so wrapped up in making the change myself, but being with people and facilitating them to be the people that make those changes. And so I feel like I get to vicariously live through all the residents who go out and do great things, because I was just a small shard of their experience in being that person who goes out and makes great change.
How do you go about inspiring that kind of change? That's like, I feel like that's one of the hardest things to do as like a leader and a teacher, and to really find that inspiration in someone.
Motivational quotes, the daily calendar over there, I don't know if I have an answer on how to inspire. I think you do what is needed to put people in the best position. I'm not, and if people get something from that, that's great. But what I'm all about is trying to find the best spaces for people. People, can thrive, but also fail when put in the wrong environment or in the wrong spaces. And so my job is really to put our program in the right space, but also each resident in the right space, because each resident probably needs something that's slightly different, whether it's in advising or mentoring or what fills their bucket up in terms of community medicine or advocacy. And, my dream is to really get this program in a spot where we can continually get better, which we do, in tailoring those experiences for our residents to put them in the right space. And, I don't feel like I'm the one who inspires. It's all the people around me. This is why I came here. I came here because all the faculty around me inspired me. So I feel like all the inspiration is around me, and I just put people in the right spaces and then let them gather up all the inspiration from the Marines or other folks.
Yeah. Let's talk about the mission of the program. Like, really, what do you see as really the mission of our program?
Yeah. I mean, the mission of our program is on our website, and I would try to say it from memory, but I feel like I would miss a few words here and there. But the things that are important to us is really to train people, as I mentioned kind of in the earlier video. I don't even know if it's earlier video now, but to really have the tools necessary to be competent family physicians, and I'd probably go a step beyond that, but excellent family physicians who really can bring some measure of justice, if possible, to their communities. And if their community is local, if their community is going back home to where they came from on a different part of the country, or if it's global health, we have folks who do global health work afterwards. The community means so many different things, and not every community needs the exact same set of tools. There's certainly some core fundamentals, but I think everyone needs slightly different tools to be the best person possible for the job.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about really building equity and justice for patients by creating the most competent family physicians possible. Because in a system that's broken, referrals equals delays in care or no care at all. Insurance inequities equals delays in cares or no care at all. And so if we're able to take all our patients and say yes, I think that's going to be the best thing that we can do.
What do you envision like an excellent family medicine doctor doing? Like, how do you measure that competence or that excellence? I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you can say that a doctor is competent, and certainly other ways that you can say a doctor is excellent, right? Like, it's not like step one scores or it's not boards any longer.
So I want residents to leave knowing two things. I'm a simple man, so these are the two things. One is knowing what your big miss is. So I define the big miss as when you are tired, when you are not in the best emotional space, when you are pushed to the edge. Everyone has their own DNA in terms of what is the miss. Is it I'm not detail oriented enough because I'm a big picture person and so I'll have a medication error, or vice versa, where I'm getting too lost kind of in the minutia and I need to take a step back and see where my patient's at as the big picture. Is really knowing what your miss is, because medicine, you're not going to leave here knowing everything. And so what you need to know is you need to know yourself, which is the most important thing in your big miss. And so the number two thing is to know, if you don't have the answer, how to find the answer. Now, yes, there's UpToDate and Dynamed, etc. And yes, that is part of it. But it's also knowing all of your resources in terms of who to go to for questions, but also your system, your internal system of, I don't know the answer, but here are the things I do know, and here are the things I need to find out, and this is the way to find that answer. Because we have a lot of folks who end up doing global health or rural medicine, and they're going to encounter things that they've never seen before. Fish hooks and weird spots, or weird derm rashes, or exposures to things that they haven't really heard or read about before. And so what you really need to know is that system of how to get an answer when you don't have the answer. And that's really what I want for folks to have, those two skills. And so if you can leave with that, I think you're really competent in terms of being able to go out and not know everything, but be able to get to the end goal.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So know what your weaknesses are, to know where to find, know where to get help, and when to get help. It's very important. The second part of your thing that you mentioned in your mission was kind of like to take care of the community. So what is the community? I feel like we use that word a lot so much that it sometimes loses meaning. But like you move from Anchorage, which is obviously a different community, to Newtown. How'd you go about like finding a community here, and what do you envision? What do you see as our community here at First Health?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think there's different definitions. For me, this is my community is literally here at this residency, and the patients that we serve at our 3 clinic sites. And I may not directly work with those communities because I can't be at all 3 sites at once, but the work that I do as program director directly affects those communities. So those are the communities that I have in mind. I also, admittedly, one of my passions is refugee health. And so I do consider the refugee population in Seattle, but also south of Seattle, to be one of my communities as well. But for me, I think that's a little bit different for residents as they move forward. I think your community is, in terms of clinical medicine, going to be the patients that you serve on your panel, your continuity panel, but also in the hospital as well. And so, that's at 3 different clinic sites. The communities are slightly different at all 3 of those clinic sites, whether it's north at Ballard, or a larger homeless population at the public health site at DFM, or patients that have been gentrified and pushed further south of Seattle at the First Health Clinic site. Those communities are going to look slightly different. But for everyone that leaves, their community is going to most likely be different in terms of where they're working if they move to another state or another community. And I think a lot of people, when they come in, they kind of have an idea of the community they want to work with, whether it's having competent gender-affirming care skills or trans health skills or addiction medicine skills or procedural training, because you're going to be in a place that's resource limited. So I think a lot of people come in having an idea of what that community is. And so we want to not just take care of the communities that we have here right now, but whatever communities that our residents are going to take care of in the future.
Gotcha. Like, how do you define justice in terms of the way that a doctor or a resident should participate in trying to carry that out? And how do you think our program carries out that mission?
Yeah. So again, like I say, I don't think our program can alone carry out justice. I think that's going to take a larger movement in the United States in terms of healthcare reform, in terms of insurance reform. I don't think you're going to be able to get to the heart of justice, which acknowledges, our country's history and how that informs the health or the lack thereof, the health outcomes for patients or for people in the community. So until we get there, I say the next best thing is equity. And equity is trying to level the playing field as much as possible. And this is why I want people to be well trained. So again, like sometimes when we think of like didactics, I'll admit, I was a resident before. Like I don't always want to go and listen to lectures all the time, even though like now I would kill to just like sit in lectures. But what should drive is the excellence in that the more skills you have, the more you can collect on your tool belt, the less your patients have to go elsewhere. And there's so many barriers in healthcare now, whether it's transportation or insurance access or access to specialists in general. So anytime we can keep a patient, say, yes, I can do your hormone replacement, or yes, I can do your Suboxone, or yes, I can do that procedure here in the clinic, to me, that levels the playing field just a little bit. It doesn't do it completely, but like to me, I don't think our program can really do justice. I think that has to be on a grander scale. Granted, we participate in community medicine, and we have our anti-racism curriculum, which I think is a step in the right direction for justice. But I do think it has to be a larger movement in order to like truly say that we are executing on justice. Are we for justice? Absolutely. Are we going to push for it? Absolutely. In terms of advocacy on this guy right here on a state level with advocacy, I think that's going to be really important. I mean, that is really important, but really it's a bigger conversation in terms of like really getting reform from the top down.
Do you think residencies should train residents to kind of participate in that bigger change, and how do we do that?
We have to. I think in order for things to change, we have to have people that are competent in lots of different things. Not every single person is going to have the skills or the drive to drive out to the state capitol and lobby, but we need to have a portion of our workforce, our family medicine physicians, our graduates, who are really competent in doing that and have the drive to do that. Because we also need people who are advocating for their communities on a local level. So whether it's a local, state, or national level, we really want to have folks that have that competency. And what we try to do is we try to have folks who have that desire be paired up with faculty, whether it's Kevin Wang nationally or Mark Johnson locally, who's actually going to be a WFP president coming up. Or tied with community medicine, which we just revamped for local advocacy in our program. Try to get tied to individuals that are part of that conversation already, to whether it's passing a resolution nationally, or if it's working with the state group in terms of lobbying to get people with that experience moving forward. So can we get better? Absolutely. I think that's an area that we continue to try to improve upon, because I think it's so crucial. And so that's another area that we're going to keep pushing forward with.
Right. How is it welcoming interns? Every year you have like a fresh face of people. And does it feel like learning the same things over and over again, or is it like kind of like new energy? Because I feel like at the end of my intern year, I was very like. It was a very long year, and then when the new interns come, I feel like there's like a whole new breath of energy. So I wonder if that's the same thing for you, and how is it working with so many new faces every year and learning how everything is going on, and what that is like for you, and if that's changed over time.
Yeah, a huge blessing having new interns come in. I mean, we in residency education, there's a natural cycle. And you get momentum for those cycles. I kind of liken it to it's like Mario Kart, where you hit like the speed boost. And whether it's graduation or new interns coming in, or some of our retreats, these are things that have natural momentum to them that really help kind of carry the momentum throughout the year. So I absolutely love getting new interns. So of course, on the flip side, it's always sad to see R3s go, because there's people that you've become close with over 3 years. But luckily, a lot of our grads kind of stay in the area, so we get to keep in touch. But I love getting new interns, and I'm always like so impressed too. I feel like kudos to the medical schools system, because I just feel like the residents coming in are so much more competent and well-rounded in a lot of fields in terms of anti-racism. Work especially, I've just been really impressed, and it's pushed our program to get better over time.
Gotcha. And then one last question is, when you go to conferences and when you talk to other program directors, what is the one thing about our program that you just love to talk about, or you can brag about, or you can, tell them about all day?
Yeah. I mean, I love bragging that our so a little bit of behind the curtain insight. And I was talking to, I was on service last week, and our R3 who was running the service, I was talking to her at the end of it, and because it was her first time being the head on service, and I said, you will know how lucky you are by the level of anxiety that you feel in terms of like who you're working with. And like I feel so blessed all the time, because our program, we get such fantastic individuals who are so motivated to do the work, to bring equitable care to their patients. And really it makes my job so much easier, and faculty jobs so much easier, when you have residents year in and year out who are just incredibly motivated. So to me, I hear about a lot of the hurdles that other programs have, and it's really like counting my blessings. I did a program director fellowship this past year, and I get to hear about all the things that, we have lots of problems, we have lots of things we need to get better at, but then I get to hear about all the other things that we don't have to deal with because we figured it out, or we just don't have to have that problem. And I just consider myself incredibly fortunate to have the group in it, year in and year out, get such a great group of people.
Cool. All right, thanks, Ben, for chatting. It's great. It's always good to get to know your background and story. And then we'll hopefully give you all more stories about other faculty, residents, and folks around the area. You can check back in, and there will be more videos about our program, and we'll highlight all the different parts of our wonderful program that you will be able to see and share and then experience if you come here. Thanks.
Well, thanks everyone.
Bye.